Hi, this is Allan McKay. Welcome to episode 70. I'm interviewing Ash Thorp about his new short film, Lost Boy, that he directed. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Allan McKay podcast. Allan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Allan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Allan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on allanmckay.com.
Okay, so welcome to a brand new episode. I was going to say I'm really excited about this. I'm starting to notice a bit of a pattern that I'm always saying I'm really excited about this, but this is an episode I was really psyched to do, which is have a chance to talk with Ash, who every single time we get to chat, I always love it. I always leave with a lot of really great takeaways. It's very inspiring, and I kind of figure that is something I'm hoping that you too will get a lot from as well. Now, Ash has worked on a lot of massive projects, from Prometheus to Iron Man to a lot of Marvel projects, Call of Duties. There's a lot of stuff. If you want to check out his website, I'll post everything to the show notes. And a link to the show notes, just really quick, is just to go to www.allanmckay.com/70. So ALLANMCKAY.com/70. One quick thing also, the show notes have been improved. I'd love to get your feedback, what you think of these. They're very in-depth. That all being said, we talk about a short film that I think he actually talked about in the last episode I did with him, where he was about to go off and start planning this project. And now we're coming back full circle to really deconstruct the whole process. And we don't really get into visual effects as much. I actually wanted to do that as well, but we covered so much, I didn't really have much time left to do that. But basically, we talk about everything from the initial coming up with concept to greenlighting the project and going through really in-depth every step of making the short film. A couple of subjects that we did get into, which I find is something that we don't all talk about, and that is like dealing with the fear of failure or dealing with anxiety. A lot of the pressure that we put on ourselves, as well as the pressure that other people put on us as well. And something that's quite real, but again, a lot of us don't acknowledge that we have that, or worse, we think that we're the only one going through that. So I thought this was really cool to kind of touch base on a lot of things that usually we might think we're in it alone and that other people don't deal with these sorts of things. And I think that are very important when you're trying to do something big, and that you have that piece of you that's really kind of pushing you back. And the inner critic is usually what you would call it. And, there's just a lot of really great content in here. So I always love chatting to Ash, just both from his vast experience as well as a chance to kind of get a lot of insight into a lot of other things that being an artist that usually works by yourself, works on a lot of high profile stuff, has to manage so many other things. It's kind of one of those journeys that a lot of us can relate to, but again, you don't really get to hear about it too often. So we'll dive right into this. One thing I wanted to get into before we do is that I wanted to end 2016 with a bit of a bang, and that is that I wanted to put together another mega training series, one that I wanted to go through doing some live action training, discussing a lot of different things related to visual effects, taking a shot from beginning to end, that sort of thing. And I wanted to do it a little bit differently this time around. So I went out with a small group of people. We were down in downtown Los Angeles shooting on the Red Epic Dragon, so shooting everything 6K. And what I did is I put this the video footage online, and everyone on my inner circle email list, I was able to reach out and say, hey, submit your ideas. I want everyone to submit what they think would make a really cool subject. And I thought this was really cool because rather than me come up with the concept, this is a chance for all of you to come out with some really amazing ideas. The whole idea of this would be that you would come up with the concept, and then now we would all get to vote on the top 10 best submitted ideas. So there's already been thousands submitted, which was really cool. And I've got my work cut out for me trying to go through all of them and handpick what I consider to be the top 10 ideas. But then I'm going to be sending out a link for everyone to be able to vote on what their favorite one is. And whatever one is the highest voted out of all of these, I'm then going to go and create the entire visual effects shot from start to finish contributing the entire way, documenting the entire process. So you'll be able to get the videos and everything else that I'm posting, files, 3D files, HDRI, footage, roto, all the bits and pieces, the comp, everything as I go through it all. And this will literally be taking a shot from start all the way to completion and documenting the entire process as I go through it. And I think this will be really cool. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm excited about it. And it's going to be really, really awesome. So the other thing is there's going to be a few incentives for signing up. If you want to share it around and help be a part of this, then I'm going to be giving a chance to meet me in Paris at the It's Art Masterclass in 2017, as well as Ash Thorp, Dan Rorty, Neil Blevins, all these other really high-profile artists. So that's going to be really cool to be a part of that, as well as if you share it around, you automatically will get a visual effects supervisor's toolkit. So it'll be a guide to all the type of equipment and everything else that I would use on set on a feature film. And there'll also be a small course that I'm putting together that you'll get access to that's worth a couple $100. You'll get it for free, which will be on how to 10x your career. And so all of this stuff you'll get for free by just simply sharing it around. Either way, if you want to sign up and vote and get all the free training, everything else, I guarantee there's going to be a lot of really amazing stuff in there. If you want to do that, you can get the link from the show notes. So simply just go to allanmckay.com/70 for episode 70. So 70. And you'll be able to get a link there to sign up and get all this great stuff, as well as vote on what the content will be. And by signing up, you'll then get access to all the exclusive videos, everything else I'm going to be posting related to this. And this is my way of giving back and doing something fun for December as we kind of wrap up the year. So again, really excited about this. I can't wait. In the meantime, let's get started. And
I agree.
Are you coming to Paris in March?
Yeah, we'll be there. Yeah, I'm bringing my wife. It's going to be awesome. Yeah,
that's cool.
I'm excited. Yeah, you'll be there too, right?
Yeah, I'm bringing Christina as well. So it's going to be awesome. In fact, everyone is, I think, because Dan Rorty's bringing his wife. He's leaving his kid at home. Neil Blevins, I'm guessing, is bringing Kat. So I don't know. It's going to be, for me, I'm jealous because it's going to be a really awesome, get together of all the cool friends of mine that I love and cherish. So I'm going to have a good time.
It's going to be amazing. I can't wait.
I can't twist your arm to have a glass of wine or do something.
Oh, yeah. I definitely will drink some beer or some wine or something. It'll be a great time.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So let's just get into Lost Boy. And,
sure.
I mean, I'd love to kind of just go back to the origin because I kind of feel like I can tell without even knowing much about it already, already have kind of observed a lot, but like, obviously, there's been a big journey along the way from the initial concepts all the way through to actually getting it to happen. So, I mean, do you want to talk a bit about how it actually, began?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. It started out about 3 or so years ago now. It's 2016, coming to the end of 2016. So, yeah, it was Imagine Effects magazine reached out to me. I had started drawing again. And they had reached out to me to do like a piece in their magazine. They're like, and I said, sure, that sounds cool. I was flattered because, when you come up as an artist, you're, to be in magazines or whatever, it's like, yay, look at me, I'm in print. And it feels really good, reassuring that you're on the right course. Excuse me. And so I said yes. And then I asked them, what can I draw? And they said, whatever, it's a superhero thing. And I was like, oh, well, I really would love to do my own Punisher. And they're like, yeah, go for it. And then I told my wife and she was like, don't do that. Just make your own. And I was like, what? And I was kind of upset because I really wanted to just draw a Punisher and I'd, not take the easy way out, but I already had the idea and an image in my head somewhat. But my wife's like, no, don't do that. Go be original, make your own stuff. My wife's always pushing me. So I was like, okay, cool. And then I went off and then I started this drawing and it's kind of funny. I think you could probably, if people are listening, if they're curious about this, they could probably find, I did a walkthrough of the drawing as I was doing, I did a VO of it. And it was just me kind of talking about art and creations and all that kind of stuff and how I create. So literally they can see like the origin piece, which is kind of funny how it can be documented like that. But I think it's on YouTube somewhere. But went off and made it and actually created the name Lost Boy because there was like only so many character window areas on the sign inside the drawing. And so I was like, what kind of letter formations can I make? And then I formed that out. And then it said, I was like, oh, okay, Lost Boy, that's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting idea. And I didn't really attach a story or anything to it. I just wanted to draw something interesting. And the way I kind of work is I like to work organically and just kind of use the muse and the inspiration of things that I love. I'll kind of binge on a lot of things. I'll just read a ton of comics and ingest a lot, or read a bunch of novels and stuff. And then it'll go through me, filter through, and everything that I like kind of comes out. And then I twist it in my own style. So that first piece came about, and then I was at the time of my career, I was becoming quite successful, and thankfully so. I was working really hard, but I was becoming more or less a yes man for helping on directors' films, and it's awesome to do that. I love helping people on their projects and being a part of that, but I felt like I was kind of missing my goal, which was to make my own stuff. And so what I did after that piece is I was like, okay, I'm going to make my own thing. And this is around the time when I started really getting close to talking with my friend Dan Levisi, and he's a big guy on like, IP and making your own worlds and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go make my own thing. This will be this Lost Boy thing. And I started drawing every night. And I started drawing every night. I got about 500 some odd pieces now. Wow. I draw every night. I'd make a new piece every night, like a sketch, like just to get the exercise out. And initially I was just trying to do it to connect with my childlike self, just to get back to my roots and get back to who I was. There's an innocent thing that happens when I'm just drawing by myself and nobody's art directing me or asking me for things. I can just make up my own thing. And so instead of like drawing like an apple or learning how to draw a hand or anatomy, I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to make my own stuff. And so, and I was like, if I can't figure out the anatomy of this, I'm just going to turn it into some sort of robotic thing, because I can use my imagination to solve that stuff, So, so I went off and started doing those like crazy. And I started sharing that with my friend Anthony Scott Burns, who also goes by Pilot Priest. And I would share him. I'd send the picture a night, and he'd be like, dude, this is freaking awesome. He grew up on heavy metal and all the same stuff. And we're very much cut from the same cloth, where we it's like an inside joke, but we say we're twins when we don't physically look like twins, but we act very much in the same mind. He started forming a story, and he was like, what about this? And we should create a narrative. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then, that's kind of how it started. And it went off and just went crazy from there. And it gets even more maddening and crazy as we get tied up with and connected with Misha and Jules from Post Panic, they run a studio out in Amsterdam called Post Panic and stuff. So that was really cool. Yeah, I'm going off, I'm drawing every night, and then I'm sharing the drawings with Anthony. Anthony loves them, and we're having a lot of fun. And like, hey, you can write the stories, I'll draw them. Let's go and make our own comic or make our own world or our own book or whatever. And then come to find out how hard it is for me to draw comics, because I can only draw what I feel. It's really quite difficult. I'm not very disciplined when it comes to that stuff. Design and stuff, I can design whatever. But when it comes to art with this kind of stuff, I just only can do what I feel. It's kind of weird, but it's very honest. So I'm not sure if that's what people resonate with on the art side of things.
You're not someone who can just sit down and be like, okay, there's a gun at your head, go and make this because of X. It's like you want to be passionate about it. But I'm sure you can turn that on when you need to. But I can. It's just how miserable I want to be, So I was born in '83, come from the comic book era, all that kind of stuff is really big and it's very rich and it's a part of my history. So it was always like a part of like my bucket list, like go and make my own comic or whatever, And I used to go to Comic-Con as a kid and like submit my art and all that kind of stuff. Like I knew forever this is what I wanted to do. So I'm off drawing these things, and Anthony's loving it. We started crafting the story together. It's getting crazy and wild and just so much fun. And Lost Boy is a very unique story and very odd. And then I started developing another film, which I started writing, called Spiral. At the same time, I started having this like interesting renaissance in my own artistic mind, where I was just blowing up and making all kinds of stuff. And so I was making this film, and then Misha and Jules reached out to me and they said, hey, because I was helping them on their short film concept called Sundays. I helped them with the design on the title sequence and stuff. They're super nice, and I've met them. We met in person at OFF. That's when Anthony and I were there. We did this title sequence for that. And then
And they said, hey, do you have anything that you're developing? We got Sundays going. It's a great success. And we have all these other things going on. And we really are just trying to reach out to our friends and people we admire and see if they have things that we can, help support and be a part of. And said, yeah, I have this thing Sundays. And they loved it. And I showed them some stuff from that. And then they're like, what about Lost Boy? And I said, well, Lost Boy is just, it's a rough story right now. And Anthony and I haven't really hunkered down, but it's a ton of drawings. They're like, well, if you could put something together and pitch it to us, we'd love to know. And I called up Anthony. He was like, let's do it. So we put this pitch package together for them. We sat them down on a call and we walked them through the world. It blew them away. They were just there. They just signed up. They signed the dotted line basically right there. And we became partners. And they were like, let's fucking do it. It's very bold. It's very unique. It's very different. It's unlike most anything. The short concept film is just like a very, very small little like feel of what the world is. So they signed on and we were like, okay, great. And so production started. You want me to go through the whole thing? Sorry, I don't keep cutting in because I can keep going.
Honestly, I mean, for me at least, like as soon as I watched it, I was just like, fuck, I gotta go talk to Ash because this is awesome. And at the same time, the more I thought about it, it's just like I'd love to just kind of deconstruct like what is going on, because I mean again, just both as artists, there's something where we're always kind of curious about or intrigued about the process of how other people worked and kind of maybe even what pitfalls they ran into and everything. So I mean, hearing all of this already is just like, hell yeah, this is awesome. So yeah, I'm loving every minute of it.
I'm going to do my best to paint an honest picture as much as I can with both the good, the ups and the downs and all that stuff too. So, without like insulting anybody too, because I don't want to make anybody mad at me or anything. So, but yeah, Misha and Jules were like, let's do this. And they're like, let's do this. And, so then we, had to get the legal involved, and I'm very keen on keeping the rights to the IP. With Anthony and I own and are creators of Lost Boy together. And so yeah, we had to get the legal stuff going, and that took a long time to make sure that we were all speaking the same language, because Amsterdam has different legal ramifications as America does, and this is an American property, and there's just, oh man, so we spent quite a bit of money and a lot of confusion and frustration until we ended up just jumping on a call together and said, hey, these lawyers are just making more work and frustration for us. What do we want out of this? And so we sat together and we came to a good consensus and we worked it out. And for me, it's really important for us to retain the creative on everything with this, because then not like anybody would have bad intentions. It's just like, it is like, this project is me and it is Anthony, and it's very close to.
No one thinks of that stuff until like later when the shit hits the fan. So, I mean, the more prepared you are in the beginning, even when you're an artist and you don't want to think about business and you're not a business person, or even with you when you're doing it with your best friend, like, or your brother or whatever it's going to be, those are the situations that you don't plan for it. But if you don't do all that shit, even marriage these days, like you got to.
Oh yeah, you have to.
Think ahead,
Well, marriage is a business. It's just it's a legal business. Like it's two people, but you're on paper, you're a business. That's what it is really. So yeah, I mean, even Anthony, we have a contract between each other too, just in case things go crazy. It's like, it's important to have, and you need to have those uncomfortable situations in the beginning. Unfortunately, the worst thing about that stuff is that Anthony said it perfectly one time. He was like, it's like doing these things. It's like, hey, nice to meet you. I don't trust you, and so, and it just kind of creates this bad energy at the beginning. But
well, actually, sorry, I'll dive in just before we move forward and kind of talk about that for a bit, because I agree it's such a critical thing, and I've seen so many friendships go to shit because two people partner up, and the fact that you don't have the uncomfortable conversations in the beginning, it means that later on there are no boundaries set or no bounds set, and
you need
that means sometimes it isn't even about like what one person says or the other. It can just be the fact that because there aren't any bounds set, you might start panicking or thinking about like, is it always going to be like this? Does he understand I'm doing all the work, or she's doing this, or whatever it's going to be? And like by having those discussions and setting the responsibilities, whatever it's going to be between, like it's important, because that way it's like, well, we know we've discussed it all and we're very clear about it all, so therefore I can feel good moving forward, rather than in the back of your mind freaking out about shit that probably isn't a big deal. It's just you're not having those conversations, or later on there could be such big misconceptions. I've had actually, I'll just quickly say, like, I've had a couple of people now where there's one studio that basically got to a point where they eventually got passive aggressive and started bringing it up, getting off their chest that they thought that we agreed to go into a partnership together, and I'd never ever had that conversation. Just in their mind, they thought that. Same deal with someone who thought that I was going to hire them as a full-time art director, and I'd never had that conversation, but somewhere the seed got planted in their head, and because they've never brought it up to actually make it real, because they probably didn't want to tread on anyone's toes or anything, later it becomes real in their head, and because you haven't had those conversations, it actually becomes like an elephant in the room where it finally gets brought up, and it's like, wow, like that's completely never been brought up with me at all, and suddenly there's like, bad blood between you, and that kind of shit's so common, and you got to think
Super
ahead.
toxic.
And you just got to get it out in the open, even shit that you don't want to talk about, get it out of the way, and it's like, all right, good, now we can have fun and not worry about all the BS.
Yeah, well, I grew up. Me. I study this stuff, and so I've studied George Lucas and all these guys, and I see the pattern, and you gotta, when you make your own world, you need to share it. You have to. You can't. The Lost Boy concept short and the website and all this stuff. I mean, sure, it doesn't start. It starts with me, and Anthony, but it doesn't get done without us collaborating, working with a big group of people, a massive group of people, in fact. And so you got to share it, but it's really important to know those boundaries are very important. So, it was really important for me personally to make sure that we retain the full creative right. And like it was written in documents, that Post Panic is going to produce, and they're going to help facilitate all the things that are needed. And they did an amazing job of that. And Anthony and I would slave ourselves and work and get the best we could, and do what we had to get the film and everything we had to the level it needed to be. So it was a total process, really. So getting that, making sure we were all seeing eye to eye and making sure that was really clear is great. And Post Panic, they're great people. Like Misha and Jules, they have the best intentions to make great things. That's what they live for. That's what they love to do. So it was a no-brainer. It just took a little bit of time, and it cost us quite a bit of money. The legal fees started stacking up, started freaking us out. We're like, oh man. So had to cut that stuff out. And then we just eventually, I think if I can give any advice to anybody that's listening and wants to do this kind of stuff, make sure, of course, you have a lawyer or you have somebody smart that understands contracts and is okay with reading that stuff and dissecting it, and making sure that that you are very clear with what you want. But I would say lawyers create their own work, and you got to be very careful about that, because they'll sit and toil. They'll sit and toil, and they'll just hold you by a string and pull you along and charge you, and like not all lawyers, some though. And we encountered that a little bit here, and it was like very frustrating. So it ended up being the fact that we all jumped on a call and said, hey, like, what about this? And what about that? And we need to do this and we need to do that. And, can we stop this? And can we push this over here? And can, just finding a good middle ground, giving a little bit, but also taking. The thing is, when you make these things, nobody knows the value of them. They have no value really in the beginning. They're just an idea, really. Mm-hmm. At the point in Lost Boy in the beginning was just like, it was an idea that Anthony and I had together. And then it was a ton of drawings at that point. There was really nothing behind it. So it didn't have any worth in the real world. None, really. So Post Panic was putting a significant risk by investing with us. But, I value it. I know what the potential is because I can see far beyond it, and go like, okay, this is this could be like toys and all these other things, a franchise. And I want to be able to retain that vision.
Yeah,
like Lucas did with Star Wars, so.
You take Akira or something like that at the time could have, it could have been just something that's like, oh, it's just another anime, and that could have been it. But you get something that's going to take off, and you never know how big it's going to get. And it's all the foresight of it's better to do it in the beginning, you never know whether it comes to contracts or anything else, like where things could go. But at the same time, it's good practice too. Even the stuff that we don't want to do and we typically wouldn't be exposed to, or the things that once you've done it for a while, you become comfortable with it, and it also helps you be able to help others when they're going through similar things too. If you're able to say, hey, you know what, lawyer up, or here's what you got to do, or even the advice you're saying right now, because I agree that something that's come up a lot for me is always being told, like, whenever you're talking to a lawyer or an accountant, like you got to be clear about what you want, because an accountant might call you up and be like, hey, got any questions? And you're like, well, what about this? And suddenly it leads down this whole alley of questions, and you don't realize you're being charged for every single minute. And when you ask him to look at one single thing and you get a bill for $5,000, that's when you're like, well, I didn't know about that. And so it's important to kind of say, like,
business,
this is my budget for this. Like, if I do this, how long is it going to take? What are you going to charge, or whatever? And just kind of at least having some kind of foresight, because you're right. Like, whether it's a lawyer or similar fields, like, they got to create work for themselves. And if you're not clear about it, they're just going to go off and do their thing, and you're going to get the bill later on. And a lot of the time you could say, okay, I want to discuss these 5 things. Can you have it done by Wednesday? They can go do that. But if you don't, suddenly they're going to be researching and doing whatever the hell they want to do. And later on, it's just like, geez, I didn't, expect or ask for any of the stuff that you're doing or understand, a lot of the time. So
yeah, it'll run away from you. So you just to be very clear. And that's just business 101, is being very clear. Business is cut black and white. And I think one thing to mention is that for me, what I want to do in life is just continue making the things that I enjoy with the people I enjoy. And I'm very clear with that. And so Lost Boy is that thing. And so being good at business only helps facilitate the longevity of doing such a thing, So being clear, it's like, as an artist, I'm not inspired by business, but business becomes the art, if that makes sense. And it's like, and becomes, when I first started, I would get very disinterested and very depressed and sad having to incorporate so much business into all this stuff. It was like, it would kill me, because I'd be like, man, like how, like the lawyer stuff and the legal, and then the fighting over, it's like custody of a kid or something, And like, I'm like, no, you can't.
I don't even want the
that.
kid anymore. There's too much work.
Yeah. I would get to the point where, I don't know if I've ever given up. I would never give up on it. But at the same time, I would just be like, we just need to take a break or something. Like, it's getting too intense, And so, in my personal life, my wife and I, with our daughter, Akira, who's, right. We have split custody. So like, I deal with that in a personal level too. So it's just, I have thick skin with it now. Now I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, it's just, it's a part of it, and I'm a little bit more desensitized to it, and I try to do my best not to take things too personal, at least, So it's hard, for me. I'm such a passionate person, and I can't help but take things personal. So we'll probably get into that later on too. So that'll be pretty funny. But
I bet.
Yeah, the legal stuff though, I definitely think if you're looking to create your own IP and your own intellectual property, that's what IP means. If in case somebody's like, what the hell's IP? Intellectual property is anything that you.
It's not internet making. Protocol, okay? So
yeah, it's not internet protocol. Yeah, exactly. There's so many different things that can be. But yeah, making your own worlds and stuff, you definitely need to take it seriously as much as you can, and respect yourself and your partner's time by making sure it's like written out in paperwork in some sort, so that you can be protected from it. And like I said, even Anthony and Anthony is so casual and chill and relaxed about a lot of this stuff, and I don't blame him. My wife helps us a lot with a lot of these things. She's a business major, and she's incredibly smart and very well versed in all this stuff. So I don't, like, honestly, all this stuff wouldn't really exist without her. None of it could, because she's the one that helped spark it, like, she's the one that was like, so it's kind of funny, the origin story where she's like, draw your own stuff, and then little does she know, she'd be like, what the hell, years later, like, what's going on here? The madness of just what she started, with this little seed. Yeah. But yeah, so we finally got past all the legal stuff and got to an agreement. And a lot of it too is just talking, like, hey, we're humans, you're human, we're human. You get to the point where you're just like, you just don't think of anybody as human, because you're like, man, this is so contrived and hard. But no, we got to a great place, and, we realized, hey, we all want the same goal here, and we all want to work on this together, and we want to do this. We know it's special. Let's do this together, and let's share it. But we got to make sure everybody's like sharing it equally properly, So
yeah.
And then so we go off, and then Anthony and I meet up in New York, because Anthony's in Toronto and I'm in San Diego, and we meet up on a job. It was the Neil deGrasse Tyson job that I had directed with Chris Ironman. And I had brought, we needed a VisFX supervisor. Anthony is a jack of all trades, and he's very good at VisFX, so he knew what to do and stuff. So I brought him in there, and we hung out for, I think we spent like a day after or before the production started, where we storyboarded out the thing. So when we get together and work on jobs together, we end up working on something too. And so that was really cool. Got a chance to do that. And we storyboarded out the sequence. We're like, this would be so cool. And let's do this thing and blah, blah, blah. And took those rough storyboards, put it together in a Boardomatic. Anthony made, again, Anthony's a jack of all trades. Like myself, I try to be as much as possible. And he went out and we did a previs and we sent that along to Post Panic. They knew what's up. Then we started getting location scouts. Anthony and I wanted to shoot in Iceland or Scotland, but we ended up shooting down in Spain per what Post Panic wanted. So we had a certain budget to stick to and all that good stuff.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to check, because you kept mentioning Amsterdam, and I'm like, I remember last time we spoke, I thought it was Spain. So I'm like, shit, did it get moved or what's the story? But, cool.
Yeah, I went to the irony of it. That was like the inside joke, because I live in the high desert of Southern California. And so we flew around the world to meet up and go. And this is, I mean, there's so many stories that are woven through this, because it's just making things is incredibly difficult. And there's so many different levels to it. Remind me to tell you about like all the terrorist stuff that was going on, and how like us trying to bring Lost Boy, like the part of the costume through on the plane and stuff, and like how we had to rip it apart, and like they were freaking out on us. It was so crazy. There's a million things that can go wrong, and it all worked out in the end. But yeah, we flew. Well, I flew out to, I believe we flew to Amsterdam, spent a couple of days there going over everything after this is after like location scouting, casting. It was cool. Like they would send over like, hey, we have this like casting role from another casting agency, and they would send over a bunch of pictures and people doing some actions and stuff. And then we would go and pick through them. And that was really fun. And then we found our two actors. Westy Clay is the male. Well, he's not a male. He's a synthetic being. There's no sex attached to any of these characters. And then Naria, I believe is her how you pronounce her name. I could be butchering. I apologize if so. She was a sweetheart. She was awesome. She was really cool. And so she just had this really beautiful look to her face and matched the character in our mind. So yeah, we found we picked those two to be the cast, and then flew out, and then we had everybody meet us. We flew from Amsterdam. We were there for a couple of days, just going through everything and talking with the VisFX supervisor and going all through all that stuff. And that was all, yeah, it's just all hands on deck at that point. And then a bunch of us jumped on the plane, flew down to Spain, and then drove out to the location, which was kind of like where Sergio Leone filmed a lot of his spaghetti westerns, which are some of my favorite films, which is like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and all that kind of Once Upon a Time in the West. Like that's a huge, those are big influences on Anthony and I in regards to the pure cinema of those things. And so that was kind of an amazing irony flying out there. But the funny thing is that we flew, well, at least I flew around the world to basically go to what looks like my backyard.
Desert, yep.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of deserts, honestly. I grew up in like tropical Hawaii, so I don't know why I'm out in the desert. I don't know what the deal is, but I love it, but it's just not my thing. But yeah, so we were out there. We had a pretty massive crew. Everybody met up, had our DOP there, and we walked through the locations, found some stuff, planned out all the shots and the sequences. And mind you, I've never, the film that I've directed prior to this, which is a short film, which is supposed to be a title sequence. I've done a couple director's jobs, but this is by far the heaviest one. So the whole time I'm like, oh shit, like stuff's getting crazy.
Did you have an AD?
Yes, we had an AD, and I'm trying to think, we had quite a bit of people there.
with the DP and the AD, was it post-panic that did they just bring in their own people from there, or did they specifically look for people like?
Yeah, they had their own people, and I think I'll get into that in a little bit too, because Anthony and I we're very controlling, because we know exactly what we want to be, and that's a good thing and a very bad thing too in regards to just how you work with your crew and stuff too. And I'll probably definitely get into the dynamics of that and how it works and stuff. So, but yeah, we get out there, we meet our DOP, who is Arnaud, and then our AD and all the other guys' locations. And we drove around. We were there for a couple of days before shoot, just to make sure locations worked, and we went through the shots and we planned it out, because it was all night shooting. It was, I believe, shooting, we did 5 days. The whole film was done in 5 days. So yeah, we went out, checked the locations, it was funny. It was quite ironic too. I'm not sure when you release this, but I've been working on Assassin's Creed for a while with Justin Kurzel. And the irony is that he had a location. We found a location that we loved, and we thought it was going to be perfect for most of the film. And then they wouldn't let us because it was like too close to Assassin's Creed. And we asked them if we could like get a couple days in off their time. They're like, no, you can't. I was like, you bastards. So it was so funny when I met Justin later. I was like, dude, you got in the way of my film, So it's a funny joke. But yeah, I'm segueing. But yeah, we went out, checked out the locations, and we were all staying at this crazy big old hotel that was pretty crazy. And just setting, we had Nino, who was our costume designer. We got him to fly out, and that was really cool for him because he's just loves this kind of stuff. So he was right there with us the whole time and getting the actors fitted and making sure, because I mean their gear is quite unique. And Nino spent a good 2 or 3 months just like long days putting all this stuff together by himself, and he did a great job. It was cool. He pulled it off from my sketches, and we did a lot of reviews and calls, and he had his wife test fitting and all that stuff. It's like, again, as I said, it's so multi-layered. There's so many things that go on with this stuff, because if anybody's listening, you know how film productions go. Like they're very they're just intense. There's just a lot of stuff going on. So and I'm skipping over big broad chunks, so I apologize, but so we get our locations, we find them out, make sure the actors are set, get everybody good. I begged the female actress to let us shave her head and do a mohawk. I just thought it would be so cool, but she wouldn't. So we had to do like a bald cap thing. So that was like a nightmare in post, as you know. It's fixing bald cap seams. It
worked pretty well. Or I guess if you're doing a lot of fixing, then that says a bit it looks great on screen.
Awesome. There's tons of work that was done by Post Panic. We had like a bald cap set up. It was just a lot of work for them. So a lot of roto and a lot of stuff like that too. But the location was really beautiful, and we had these huge massive cranes and huge generators and all kinds of stuff, and there was tons of logistics and all that stuff. And so here I am sitting. This is like one of my first like decently sized productions with Anthony, and just like shit, this is getting real. And once I saw like Wes DeClay, which is the LB, once I saw him all suited up, I mean, I couldn't help but like kind of squeal as like a little kid, like, man, look at him. It's so cool. Like, this is the dude. I've been drawing this character for so long, and now like he's in the flesh, and it's just, he didn't speak a lick of English too. He's from Brazil.
That's perfect.
And so it was actually really cool. And I was trying to get them to translate, like, have you seen Pumping Iron, and like all these funny things about like bodybuilders, because he was like Olympic level bodybuilder. He's a huge guy, massive guy. And so it was really cool talking with him, and what little talk I could do, but it was so cool. I couldn't help. I was just freaking out, and the way they looked in their costumes. Z is the girl's name. That's what we call her. And so, or this female character, or whatever you want to say. So, but she just seeing them decked out in their gear and running and all that stuff. And yeah, it was crazy. And we got out there. Everybody was there. VisFX supervisor, the crew, makeup. We had freaking trailers. It was a big production, bigger than I've ever done. It was pretty crazy. And we're all in the desert. And it's just high stress, like you got so little bit of time to get what you need, and you have to be so ready. And there's things that just didn't work. We had this like big massive rig thing that was attached to this truck thing that was supposed to drive, but it was bouncing all over the place. And so that was a nightmare, because we needed to have these shots in the previs in our minds. It was like these beautiful, smooth shots that weren't handheld or shaky in any way and stuff. And so it was just finding those logistics and stuff was, oh man,
that's really cool.
The level of madness on set was just crazy. And and then also learning how to work with the DOP, and like making sure that they're seeing what you're seeing and they're getting the same thing, and you feel you guys are aligned, and the AD too. And Anthony and I are kind of like, we're very particular about what we want and what we need to see, because the thing is, when you make a film, everybody comes together in the production, and it's very intense, very, very intense, long days, very intense, mad, crazy decisions made on very fast, just rapid, basically. But the thing is, Anthony and I have to live with the responsibility of finishing this thing long past when they're done, and the total production time on the short film, the 7 or 10 minutes or whatever it ended up being, was about a year and a half, so it's like,
So let's dive into
crazy.
that for 2 seconds. Just get that out of the
Sure.
way, because I was curious about that. So like, how long was pre-production? Not concept to then, but obviously a bit like from when you decided, okay, fuck it, we're doing it, to it all happening. Like, how long was that initially from saying let's make a film to actually being like, okay, Post Panic's helping us out, and we're gonna start looking for locations?
Man, I lost track of time, but we lost at least a couple months in legal. So that's
Yep.
just kind of like wasted time, but it's not, because it needed to be done. So we lost at least a couple months in that. And then about a month or so of Anthony and I kind of storyboarding and writing it out, and doing previs and all that stuff, building those things out and getting that kind of set up. And I'd say maybe, shoot, man, I don't know, like quite a bit of time. While we're doing that, we were kind of working in tandem with the VisFX, or not the VisFX. Well, actually, VisFX, of course, we're doing tests there, but also the special effects, on location stuff. As you saw, there's quite some prosthetics and all kinds of stuff that was doing that. That was Artefacto, and so they did a bunch of stuff. I believe they did a bunch of stuff on Del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth too. So they were an amazing group of people. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. It was probably like, I don't know, three months maybe, if that. We had to do like all kinds of tests they had to make a full mold of Wesley Clay and Narea's head and all kinds of stuff. It was crazy. And they had to make all these scars and prosthetics that they put on his face. And yeah, it was a huge endeavor for them.
What about production? Like, how long were you guys shooting for?
Total production shooting
Including
time.
pickups and anything like that?
No time for pickups. We had to get it all what we needed when we could get it, because it was just
I thought
intense.
that would be the case.
Yeah, I believe it was 4 nights. I could be wrong. It might have been 5 nights total. No time for pickups. Just go.
And then you got what you needed.
Yeah, meet up with the DOP and AD about 2 hours before rolling and make sure we know what we're doing for the night. And it was pretty funny. Like for Nare, I was like, hey, so 2 nights you're running and 1 night you're dying, and like, and that's kind of funny. In film speed, it's completely different and altered. And so just making sure we're all connected. But yeah, it was about that. And we'd kind of run through the shots and make sure we all were speaking and seeing the same thing. And, just going through it. I think the tendency with this stuff is, this is like Mad Max, or it's Sin City. And it's like, no, it's not. It's much different than that. It's this and that. And, Anthony and I put together so many decks of reference and stuff and PDFs and things that we sent out to people with like source light inspirations and stuff. We're very specific. I mean, we must have made 50 different PDFs for everything from textures and stuff inside the costumes to VisFX that works well, or special effects, or how things work, or the integral sections of how like the brain opens up and all that kind of stuff, like like cross-sectional drawings and all kinds of stuff. So basically creating our own work.
That's cool.
And making things more intense. So
we'll dive back into production in a moment, but how long roughly was the turnaround for doing post? And I'm assuming that probably a majority of, like, I guess, how long was post, and also how much was you and how much was Post Panic?
Oh, so post-production. So the way it works with Post Panic is, this is like a passion project for them. So they have to pay the bills and keep the lights on. So they constantly have their own client work. So whenever the client work is hitting hard, Lost Way has to sit back for a little bit. Then when that kind of opens up. So the post-production time took quite a long time, but it's because of that. And it was a total of about a year, I think, from start to finish. So, and that's because, that flow, and also at the same time, like, I think, again, we had a very defined thing that we had in mind. And it's like me telling you, like, hey, there's this film called Alien, there's an alien in there. And before you saw like Giger's art, you wouldn't know. You'd back then you would just think like, oh, it's just like this globby weird thing, but with this, it's like, oh, he has a visor. It's like, no, it's not a visor. It's like a crystal cartridge jammed into his face, And so like getting there and trying to figure out. And then I was like, okay, we need to have the light disperse. This is just one small detail, but they would have to do like many simulations and tests and Houdini and light tests and renders and all that stuff, which takes time. That's just one small little thing, not minus like rotoscoping and simulations and all kinds of madness, So and Post Panic is I don't know the size of it. It fluctuates because they're a post-production house, and I don't know, like, but it's anywhere from 15 to 40 people, depending on how it scales up and what they got going on too. So, and for me, I slowly started becoming more of a vis effects guy and understanding a lot more the process, at least. I mean, I knew screen graphics and all that stuff, of course, from my like career, but other than that, it was mostly like just learn as you go. But with this, it was the whole thing, right? It's like everything from rotoscoping, to animatics, to like, I don't know, in-depth like camera tracking and stuff and all that kind of fun stuff, and all the way to grading. Yeah, for me, it was, I stayed more hands off than I usually would, because Post Panic just does a great job of what they do. And whenever I'd have to, I'd grab a slide and then paint over it and show them, like, this is what I'm thinking about that, and this is the lighting source and stuff. So I personally, as an artist in making films, I learned so much from this process. That just be the through and through experience of making something from nothing, step by step, frame by frame. So Anthony, on the other hand, is like I said, a jack of all trades, and he's very good at many things. And so he was really good at putting together, animatics, and then also doing some like tests and like light tests and things like that. And then towards the end, Anthony ended up creating the film, and we did a lot of fun stuff at my house. The last 6 days, Anthony flew down from Toronto, and we basically just stayed in my room, my studio, for like 6 days nonstop, relentless, just finishing up any of the Vis FX stuff, and then also finishing up the grade, which is a lot of fun using DaVinci. I got to watch Anthony grade, and
pick your brain about all the grading as well. So
there was quite a bit of stuff going on with the grading and stuff, the process of doing that and stuff, the light and all that stuff. So, but yeah, and then we were doing sound design additions, because we had a decent base, but we wanted to add a bunch of different things into it. So we did a ton of the sound design that's in the film, and some of like the lightning. My wife came out. It's pretty funny. In my garage, I had like one of my belts, and I was whipping it against the ground, and like, like, it's so funny. And that's all in the film, and we were like having a good time laughing and making jokes. So like, oh, that lightning sounds so good, and it's basically like my like 20-year-old belt since like high school, like smashing it against the ground and stuff in the garage. Awesome. So it's major DIY, when it comes to all this stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, it was a good mix, but mostly, I mean, Post Panic handled and cared for a lot of this stuff. And, yeah, it was really interesting. It was a whole crazy full-on thing. And we also, not only was it post-panic, but there was a couple of shots. There was this character called the Apprentice, which has that like bone-faced, like kind of mask comes on towards the end, and he's just watching basically from afar. That kind of ties into the story. But my friend Raoul Marx, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Raoul Marx. He's quite a phenom in the motion graphics and industry. He's kind of helped. He works closely with this guy named Patrick Clare, and they work at this company Elastic, where they did like the title sequences for so many *Halt and Catch Fire* and *True Detectives* and the new Westworld. It's like, so Raul's like a jack of all trades, and so Raul ended up building a bunch of those shots and stuff, and helping up some other simulations and stuff too. So, but he helped with the Apprentice shots, and so that was really cool, and getting a chance to work with him, and he's just so much fun to work with, and so we had a lot of fun doing that. So
cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'll fire out some rapid fire questions and kind of see where we go with it. But like, I guess with casting, like, how hard or easy was that to find the right people? Was it pretty stressful for you? Because I mean, again, you're so passionate and tied closely to it that trying to find the right person that does embody your characters that you've been working on in a way for a very long time. Like, how did that go?
It was 2 rounds, and we found both of them after 2 rounds, which is really good. We wrote this thing specifically not to have heavy acting, because we knew we couldn't afford actors that we could trust or would know. Because it's just, if you start putting dialogue in there and you start putting all these heavy acting roles, and it gets really difficult, not to say they didn't do a good job. It's just really difficult. So we wanted to minimize all that risk as much as possible. And with that, we did. So That's kind of the way we built it out. So for us, I mean, for me, when we saw him, it was like, oh yeah, that's the face. And we were looking for a face that we could light for him, a face that we could light that would capture all, like the way I liked it was like the way the nose line kind of connects, and then where the bottom jaw area works, and then just kind of how light cascades over the face. We wanted it to feel like a predator, a monster, a Frankenstein kind of, you know. So once we saw his face, I mean, he's a beautiful man, but he had this like really strong masculine face, and I was like, that's it. That's LB right there, you know. And for her, it was the same. She had to be this really beautiful person that you could kind of sympathize with. Casting's so unique. You have to really step outside your body and go into a different realm, and look at it from multiple different angles and stuff. And so for me, it was actually, I think it was 2 or 3 rounds maximum that they came back, and we saw hundreds of faces until we saw them, and we're like, these are the 2 people. Can you please have them go do actions? And again, we're over across the internet, so they're doing Skype videos with us and showing us videos and stuff, and they were great. They did a great job. That's the beauty of it now. It's like, we don't need to be over there. They can do it, and then we can just trust them, and they can see the videos, and the proof's in the pudding. We see it there, and like, okay, cool. You know, that's cool. I know that Ridley Scott does that stuff all the time. He casted a bunch of his recent films via Skype, I think. So
wow.
But he's working with like Michael Fassbender stuff. You know, you don't need to like ask Michael Fassbender to do his job. He does it. So
yeah, you got some trust there. Actually, it's kind of funny, like what you were talking about earlier with casting. What's the main character? I mean, like, what's the actor?
His name is Wes DeClay.
Wes DeClay.
Just call him Wes. Yeah.
Wes. Yeah, because we had, when we're doing God of War, we shot that in LA, and that was really cool because Brandon White was the guy we casted for it, and just it was really cool because he didn't really say much the whole time, and I think just the fact he was in makeup and everything else the whole time, and it just kind of made it more like as if he was Kratos, and like having to kind of command him around when he's just this dude who, like, whenever he's not on camera, he's just doing push-ups to make himself, you know, big, and all the veins pop out. So yeah, it's really cool. Just like the less he said, the more it's like, wow, okay, you are Kratos, you know, in that case. And yeah, just kind of bossing this like giant dude around who just didn't smile, didn't say or do anything. It's just like, all right, this is kind of weird.
Like, it's like big kid toys. Yeah,
but it's awesome. And you know, I can only imagine like what it's like to you know, have a concept so closely guarded in your head that you came up with, and kind of see all of that come to life, and in particular have someone kind of portray that character.
It's insane. Yeah, it's really insane. It's crazy. It's crazy how close some of this stuff gets to our previs, and again, we're very controlling, so we know exactly what we want. You can't really get much past myself or Anthony, because especially Anthony. Anthony is a jack of all trades. He knows how to operate the camera, everything really. He knows all these things, and at least a little bit of everything, and so he knows. And so it's been really cool. Yeah.
That's cool. And how did you guys break up the nights? So like you're shooting obviously always at nighttime, so it was out on location. So like, how did you typically break up the nights? Like, what shots were you doing on what particular ones? So you're saying doing all the running shots were one set and then dying, and what were the other ones? Just more doing all the kind of opening shots, things like that, or?
Yeah, we wanted to start with like the harder stuff, because it's best to start with harder stuff which is action. Anytime you watch an action film, it's really difficult to do action, because especially action shot slow-mo, it's so difficult because nuances are so subtle, and like all these things, actors' intentions and all that stuff switches and changes as you go through. So it was we tried to do the action and what we deemed as being the harder stuff in the beginning, because it just the difficulty level of these things, you need to make sure you have time, just in case you don't get it in the beginning, you have overlap in your production, because basically when you make films, as you know, it's like you only have so much time, and you have to get it done when you can get it done right then and there, so we started off with her basically running, which is all those shots that you see in the big part of the movie, which you get a bunch of flack for. It's too slow, it's just her running, so it's funny because the generation now is just like super like hyped up on ADD action, but
these days, like, the attention span you have to capture someone on the internet is 8 seconds, and therefore like,
I don't want them. They can go watch Disney.
But that's it. If anything, you're making something that's a filter, because it's like, all right, great, I'm going to shoot it a certain way, and that way I can already filter out all the people that are not my audience, and then I strictly have the people who are appreciating it can actually go through and enjoy it for what it is. So in a way, you've done that. So that's great.
Exactly. It's just finding the tribe and stuff. So, I mean, doing multiple takes, it's just multiple takes of action. Action's really quite difficult, as we said, and slow-mo action's incredibly difficult. Slow-mo precise action's incredibly difficult. So, just getting that going, and I felt bad for her. She had to like just, blast through wearing these boots and just like she was amazing though. She didn't complain once, and she just stuck to it. And if you were listening, you worked with actors, you either get a good one or a bad one. Really, there's no in betweens. They either are super pissy and shitty, or they're great, So she was awesome. She was just like, both of them were great, and they just she was great at taking direction and doing what we needed. And she was awesome. She was really great to work with. So so that's kind of how we floated out, is, start with those, and then we do the death scenes. I think we had 4 days. I can't remember. My memory is so bad because it happened like
a giant blur,
Oh God, you sleep for a couple hours, you wake up, you're just tired, all your adrenaline dumped, and you had to go back and do it all over again. It's just like constantly feeding the beast. So I have so much admiration for these guys that go off and film these big, huge things for, multiple months. I'm like, I don't know, the stamina. You just have to have a good crew. I could probably do it. It's just a matter of having a good crew, really, to protect you and shield you from things, because at any moment you could have a breakdown or stress or flip out, because the world and everything is trying to go against you, it's just laughing at you in the face, like, you can't do this, and so you had to kind of fight it, and every little nuance that you never would have thought will come up and just kind of attack. So fun times.
That's great, man. Actually, I guess I'll segue for a second. So did you have any moments like that, like a lot of self-doubt, or those kind of inner voices telling you that things are not going to work out the way you expected?
The whole project, the whole time, I have a ton of self-doubt all the time. This is like when I'm sitting at my home drawing in my office, I'm just drawing, and I don't have too much doubt there because I can control it. But when I'm asking, all these people to do this one thing, that's this image that I have in my head, it's quite complicated and different and difficult to kind of connect those things. So, it was, almost the whole time, to be honest, like it's nerve wracking to make film. It's not easy. I think it, to me, is the hardest form of art, is making film, because you're doing all of the things. You're really, it's everything. It's so visceral, sound and the moving of pictures and the acting and all these little subtle nuances. And when you go off and make it as a new director like myself, Anthony's not a new director. He's been doing this for quite some time. He's actually just finished up his first feature film that he's in editing right now. So he's got mileage on him. But for me, I was just constantly doubting, like, man, what is this? But I wouldn't let anybody know it. I wouldn't show it. Only Anthony, because him and I are like best friends. We were really very, very close. So I could show him, and when I'm like freaking out, So, but it was for me. I doubt myself the whole time. I think that's part of the art, though. I think the self-doubt keeps me grounded, keeps me alert and aware, as long as it doesn't kill me. So,
How do you deal with it?
You gotta let a little bit of it in. You gotta let it a little bit. For me, it's like letting a little bit of it come in and just, creep in and be like, to remind myself of how heavy it is. But then, other than that, it's just a matter of just dealing with it, but then moving forward, if that makes sense. So as a director, for me, I've learned what the director's role is, on this project, and the thus forward is, in my mind, a director's job isn't a matter of like being good at art. It's not it at all. It's about communicating your ideas, having good taste, and being able to facilitate like the best abilities in your teammates. And sometimes I would succeed at that, and sometimes I would fail at that. And so just kind of navigating these things.
I thought the director's job was just the fall guy. If it all goes to shit, it's like, well, it was Ash.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. It's funny. I mean, been personally publicly attacked for this short film, and it's like, it's like, it's not. I mean, of course, everything in here is me. When it's great, everybody loves you. When it's not, people hate you. And so you got to wear that responsibility. I think for me, it's one of the toughest jobs. That's why I like it. I like that responsibility and how complicated and tough it can be, and how much work it takes to be that, and the brunt that you have to wear from that. But I wouldn't have it any other way, honestly. I love the control. But I love I think that great art comes on that level where you're having like a freak out moment, where you're self-doubting and stuff. I think that's when really great work is made, personally, I think, at least for me.
So. I've had a lot of talks with a lot of people about that, and for me, there's like parts of like some of the things that I've been doing in the past couple of years that it's now part of my process, that if I'm doing something that's really big and I'm down to the final wire and it's all on me to do, I'm going to have that moment where I am going to freak out and think that shit, it's going to be a failure. I've wasted the last 6 months gearing this whole thing up. Like the course I just launched, the live action course, like I put in over $100,000 of mine before I even announced that I was going to do it. And then from there, I've gone and spent probably $500,000 on camera gear and everything else like leading up to it. So yeah. Damn. But the thing is that like I've learned to kind of trust that and actually see that as a bit of a weapon. Like the fact that I am going to think that I'm going to fail, and if anything, it actually makes me focus more. And initially it was like one of those things that, I wouldn't get sleep and I'd freak out. And now I actually rely and count on it. And, because it means that towards the end, I start thinking, shit, this isn't right. This is going to fail. This is not going to work out. And it makes me want to triple, quadruple check everything and look for things I could do better and anticipate the problems are going to come up ahead of time. So that way, in the end, it's like, you're right. Like, could have failed, I could have done worse. And because of all that kind of tension, it makes me kind of like, fix everything up even more and make it better. So that way it's even more enjoyable experience in the long run. And I think that in a way that you can kind of judo that, or I guess in your, for you, jujitsu that. So that way, it's something that you can take that negative energy and actually use it for something good, and use it to make it like that extra, the extra 10 steps or whatever you need to take it to the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congrats. That's a huge, to invest in yourself that much, you got to have, cojones for that, man.
Oh, this course took me 6 years to do just because I was like, it can't be done. There's no fucking way. Like I've worked on enough productions where I'm like, it would take millions of dollars to do what I want to do, and there's just no way. And so for the longest time, I'm like, I want to do that, but I'm going to go do X. And it's just finally leading up to it. Like the past year and a half, I've been like, all right, in 2016, I'm going to do this thing. And I actually took an entire year off of production, which has been the hardest thing for me to ever do, just strictly to work on that. And I didn't mean to go and talk about me. It's just
no, it's good. It's good to know.
Starting to talk about that,
relative.
I realized like like for me that is something now that like I used to be scared of, and now I'm like I said, I actually think that that tension and self-doubt can sometimes be used for good instead of bad.
I know it's a part of it. I think it's all, you got to take the good with the bad, and I think like if you want to be a strong, great person, you just take them both at the same time and you kind of digest them. And sometimes there's more bad than good, and trust me, it pushes me. But I love the idea of living a life that's filled with challenges, so that I can kind of understand what I'm made of, and understand like how far to push myself, and to go beyond that, and so like what's the point in making things if you're not going to like work hard for them? It's
absolutely
the struggle is part of it for me, at least, and it's a part of the journey that I like the most. Almost, it's just when it's easy to say now because I'm comfortable and I'm back home and all that fun stuff. It's easy to say now because panic attacks and shit what you'd have. But I would, again, as I would say, I would not show them, and hold it inside, deep breaths, and just like let a little bit of the insanity in and kind of go, okay, it's all right. Like our bald cap splitting, it's not working. Oh, okay, it's okay. We'll get this.
Fix it in post.
No, I hate saying that. And so I try not to, or like the face thing that's not working well, or getting that solid or whatever, or being at the airport right after those crazy bombings were going on, and then we had their outfits with us and they wouldn't let us bring it on the plane, and we had to get there and we had to be there on time and we had to do tests and all that stuff. We were already like, if anything got in the way of us, we would be screwed. And, so just having to negotiate with these like asinine idiots at the gate of this thing, freaking out because they're just afraid. And so they were using that as an excuse to like block us basically. I was just like, man, are you fucking kidding me? So like just dealing with that stuff, the levels of minutia and madness, it's like, yeah, you got to just roll with it and kind of go. And it's much like having a kid or any of those kind of things that just kind of test you at every angle of the experience, So, and what you do with it is kind of what defines you. So
I agree. I mean, I always say, and I truly believe, like, you got to always get out of your comfort zone. If you're always comfortable, then, how are you going to grow? And I remember reading a book, I think it was Top Grading, or it might have been a different book than that, but, is basically the fact that, like, you don't want to be in the circle where you've got all your buddies telling you how great you are. And it's like, yeah, I work here or I do this, and you think you're hot shit. You want to be in the circle where you literally are the one at the bottom of the group, because that's the sort of group that's going to make you want to step up your game and grow and, like, go to their level, rather than being like, great, I'm at the roof of my circle and I don't have anywhere further to go with that. There's a quote I read the other day which I really like, yet the context of it was, I think it was Tim Cook giving his Apple employees advice after Trump being elected, but it was Martin Luther King saying, like, if you can't fly, then run, and if you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl, but whatever you do, keep moving forward. And it's just one of those things that early in the morning I was just like, fuck, I love that quote, because it's so true. Like, you want to keep moving forward and growing, because I'll always associate that, instead of like moving forward, more to do with growth, because it doesn't matter about whether it's work related or personal life or whatever it is, but you want to keep kind of getting out of your comfort zone and doing new things, because otherwise you're not going to grow. You're just going to get stale in that respect.
Yeah. And so it's like going from drawing in my office to being in Spain with a bunch of new people that I've never met or worked with, and trusting them, and the levels of just chaos, and the levels of unknown. But I would honestly never change any of that stuff. And I honestly just felt so thankful and happy. And I mean, I was giving everything that I had to the project at the moment, I could give it. So, it was just crazy. This is crazy. It's hard to explain. This is all coming from inspiration of all these, comic book artists and people that I grew up, studying or watching. And I was literally there. I was like, wow, I'm like doing it on a very small scale, of course. But I mean, there's a lot of comic book artists that I know that have never made a film or tried this kind of stuff. So I just felt like very privileged to have the chance to do so, and very thankful to be able to do this with people and creating something new and different. I mean, not to talk bad about what's happening in the film industry, but it doesn't excite me as much, the stuff that's out now. It just feels like a remix, rehash over and over. So it's very safe, and that's something that we encountered, the right when we released the film, I basically had to shave. I looked like a homeless person. So I shave and then pack up really quickly, and grabbed Anthony, and we drove out to LA, and we did meetings for 3 days, just heavy meetings with everybody, and kind of people are like, what is this about? And, Anthony and I going, sitting down and expressing what it is and all that stuff. And people, their reactions are they're so interesting, like some people get it, some people don't. Some people get it, want to help, but they know they can't because it's so different and weird.
Do you want to talk about that? Like, talk about kind of what's happened since you've launched this a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, sure. The thing I learned from Fincher is he said it with Fight Club, and I think for most of his films, he said like making a film is like a layered experience. You have your ideation, your script writing, your pre-production, you go out and make your production, you go and film, and you come back and you edit it, and at every stage the film changes and changes in the edit room. And then the moment you release it and give it to the world, it's kind of like no longer yours. That's a very sad time, because it is yours, but it isn't. And I mean, since releasing, it's quite interesting, you never know, like you might think that you have something special or something great, and maybe you don't, or maybe you do. And it's so interesting once the thing when you create something so personal, dear, or something that you love or create, it's really difficult, right? Especially now with all the trolls and the internet itself. The overall response has been amazing, like really great, super positive. People are excited about this, a new idea. But I find it's so interesting about some artists. Some artists are so shitty to one another, and it makes it so sad because like, if they only knew how hard it is to make this stuff, they only tried it instead of like making a crass, super uneducated, dumb comment about things. It's like, I'm trying not to be negative here. It's just a matter of just releasing things. And then also that part of like making something, killing yourself for something, spending thousands of dollars of your own money and hours away from family and friends and stuff to go and do these things. It's all self-imposed, of course. I'm not saying that in any regards that this isn't like, I was put a gunshot. Of your
creativity.
No, it's it's totally like my cause, So I can't say anything against that. But once you release it, there's a section when you release something, you just have to kind of go, it's not mine anymore. It doesn't belong to me. It's very sad, like it becomes a part of something else, And I don't know if like I'll come to terms with that. That's just a matter of me just being kind of sensitive. But I think being sensitive to this stuff is really quite important because that's what creates really special art in my mind, So, but yeah, I mean, since then we've done a ton of meetings, met a lot of really interesting people, and yeah, it's just when you do these meetings, you kind of go in there and you're like, hey, have you read this thing that we made? I mean, Anthony and I, we also wrote this scriptment with our friend Dan, which is like a 55-page document that walks you through like the whole world and the like a quote unquote feature film or episodic kind of adaptation of the mind and the world that's inside that is Lost Way basically. And it's very adventurous and very unique and very different and stuff. And so going to these meetings and meeting with these people and nice people, educated, smart people. And, but part of what Lost Boy is on a very broad scope, because I can't talk about details because it would be a shame to say anything about it until it's out there, is that it's about questioning our programming. And it's really interesting to see the repetitious programming of Hollywood and stuff, and just like people saying like, this is really great, it's very unique, it's very different, but it's like, they're like, I don't know what I can do with this. I'm like, yeah, you probably can make your money back, but I don't want our goal is to not make this massive thing that's like out of control, because you go past like 30 or 40 million, you got to have like the main character be Matt Damon. And then after that, you got to go up to like Tom Cruise or like, so it's like, it gets really weird and it starts to
Seth Rogen.
Yeah. Seth Rogen.
Lost Boys.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, literally you'll hear ideas like that and you're like, no, okay, hold on, hold the phone, like this isn't what that is. And so trying to make something that's just different and unique, it just takes a lot more risk, and nobody can buy what they can't see, so you have to kind of like put all the effort in. You have to sell it in, and unfortunately a lot of this stuff takes in tremendous money and effort. I mean, just you saw the short concept film, so like it just takes a ton of effort and work to get that stuff. So yeah. So after the film, it's basically me mentally and physically, and Anthony mentally and physically, removing ourselves from the ownership of that film, because it becomes the public and trolls and amazing people like it. And then I think this probably next week, because this is like a holiday week, probably next week we'll see from our rounds who was interested and who wants to fess up, bring the cash and meet us halfway, and go into production and make something bigger. So it's not as easy as that, obviously. A lot of times what happens with people and their IPs, from what I've heard and understood and read and studied, is that a lot of times a studio will buy your stuff because they don't want somebody else to buy it, or because they have something else similar and they don't want you to kind of like release it, a competitive thing. There's a lot of weird things that you would not know, but they'll just buy it and hold it, and they won't do crap with it, and they'll just sit on it for like 3 years, but they'll option it and they'll own it or whatever. And I've heard also like people do that and they won't even pay you money. I'm like, this is the biggest bullshit ever. Like I will never sign that kind of deal. The goal that for me, I mean, I'm quite naive to all this stuff, but I'm like, hey, if we've gone this far, and I'm a mover and a shaker myself, like if we can go this far and do this much, then like there's no reason why I can't just continue and find other ways. There's never been a better time than now with like Netflix, Amazon, YouTube Red, all these, like, you know, and Kickstarter as well. If we go on Kickstarter and be like, hey guys, like, hey, hello world, like nobody in Hollywood or these people are down with this. This is what it is. If you're down with it, back it, you know, and we can go off and do it and make it, you know. So
It's so true.
it is very true.
Even on like AAA like Hollywood films. I mean, you look at I guess a good one would be Deadpool, just because it's like, hey, this is something that Blur did a pitch on, and it sat at Fox for a couple of years, 3 years, and then it wasn't until, you know, got magically leaked on the web and the fans got behind it.
Magically.
Magically. I was in the building while all that shit was going on, which was pretty funny. Just gonna see it all happen. But Tim
Miller's a smart guy. Him and his wife, they're smart. They're smart people, you know. They know what's up. You know, Tim's a smart guy. Yeah, I heard he's not working on the second one. So I wonder what happened.
He switched to a different project, and just because
busy guy.
Like, I think it was just. Well, I was talking with a few of the guys the other day about it, and who were directly talking with Tim about it, and basically it just came down to Reynolds, I guess, you know, essentially saying like, this is the biggest success I've ever had, so suddenly deciding to have complete ownership over it. And it's kind of hard to be a director on a project when you don't have, you know, as much creative say as you would have hoped to have had on the project.
Well, screw that. There's no point in making something if you don't have the creative control.
Exactly.
What's the point? How can you direct a ship if you don't have that power? You know, like you can't. It becomes a convoluted thing, and that's unfortunate. It's so funny how that works out. You know, it's like this weird thing. You know, so. And it's funny too, like with all this stuff with the profit and the money and stuff, people think, oh, it's made this many millions of dollars, but that's like looking in a small window, to be honest, not to say anything against, because that's amazing what it did. And I'm super proud and stoked for Tim and everybody a part of that. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but if you talk about like actual big money, it's like, you talk about like what Netflix is pushing and pulling in, you know, that's a whole different ballpark. It's a whole different business, you know.
Tim made $250,000 from the first one, which, you know, because it's got some director fee, so, you know,
insanity. But that movie made a ton of money. So
there were some goals. I know at least there were some additional goals that got a bit more money in there, but like at the same time it was 250. But from what I was told, because I haven't spoken to Tim about it personally since he finished the project, but my understanding is that like the second time around it was ridiculous numbers. You know, like, you know, what his directing fee, I think, was meant to be something that you would consider for usually the budget for a feature film the first time around, which is usually like 25 mil around that. So for you to walk away from that and say, I'm going to do my own thing because I'm not a puppet, like, you know, you got to give respect to someone for that. And Tim's definitely one of those guys. So
he is. He's a self-made person. So him and his wife, they built Blur, and Blur is a big, you know, it's a household name in that kind of industry too. So I mean, I'm a big Tim's inspired me very much so in that kind of regard, and at the same time, and also like, I don't know, watching all kinds of films that are made by people that don't have, like, I just watched this guy's film Blue Ruin last night, and I was like, man, this is great. Like, and I heard that he like put his like life savings on the line and did it.
Wow.
And like it didn't get accepted to like Sundance or whatever, like who cares? And then it got like accepted to Cannes or whatever, and then won an award. I need to listen to his story, but I just feel like, honestly, you know, like if you want to go and do something, just go and do it. You know, like I'm so sick and tired of asking for hey, can I go make my thing? It's like, fuck that, man. I'm going to go do it. You know, like, like if it's like, hey, you know, can I go make a school? It's like, fuck it. Let's go make a school, you know, like
go to GoDaddy, pay $5 for a website.
There you go. You know, you start off and you go for something. And I feel that this has happened many times, and I feel that some directors, they get kind of caught up, and just people in general in their careers, they find out how complex it is and how many layers of social bullshit that they have to kind of comb through. And I'm just not one of those people to put up with it. I just like, hey, do you want to do this with me or us or not? Mm-hmm. If you don't, then get out of my way. You know, like we got stuff to do, and like I mean, I say this thing that sounds morbid. Everybody laughs at me and they think I'm weird, even Anthony too. And I say sometimes I got in trouble with it in the meetings or like when I do talks, but I say like, hey, we're all dying, you know, I'm dying, you're dying, we're all dying. And this is a negative, not a negative way. I think it's beautiful, you know, like to be real with yourself and the fact that tomorrow isn't promised. The time that you have is the most amazing thing that you have, but you can only really enjoy it in the moment that you have it. So take that seriously and really experience the time that you have on this planet to the end, you know, like go try it, you know, do your things, chase your dreams, do what you want to do. Don't ask for permission, you know, try to be a nice person, try to be a good person, you know, like all of those things, you know, there's no reason not to, you know. So I'm ranting a little bit here, but it's just passion that's coming through. And I'm hoping that if you're listening to, if there's somebody out here that's...
I've talked to you for so long, I was prepared, and I actually love these moments because honestly, it's you being real about shit, and yeah, I completely agree with all of it.
Awesome. No, I mean, I'm hoping, I'm also trying to self-motivate and self-soothe as well. You know, like a lot of this stuff it's tough to do this, you know, like to be alone and to feel alone and to know that your dreams are very hard to capture and to go off and try things and take the risks of it that entails, like you're doing with your productions and stuff. Like it's not easy, but at the same time, just being aware that like it is possible, you know, and that we're no different than one another, really. We just decide to go and do it, and how much stress and burden we are willing to put on ourselves. But there's much harder work, you know. There's like people saving lives or, you know, trying to figure out the answer to the universe or whatever. But I think it's all universal, really. It is, you know. So, but for me, it's just like I'm gotten to the point where I'm not going to ask for permission to go and do what I want. You know, it's just like, what's the point? And if people don't like it or it's a problem for them. It's like, well, and what can I say? You know, like go make your own thing or like stop being a troll, you know, like,
yeah. I was thinking exactly the same thing earlier today, but kind of on the flip side of being a lot more negative about it, which was that I was thinking that, or I was saying to someone actually that like, I'll always give like, you know, as much help and support as I can to anyone if they need help with things, if they're going to go off and do it. But so many people just love to talk about what they want to do, but they don't fucking do it. And that's this thing is like, you can do it. And that goes back to the whole getting out of your comfort zone, because a lot of people, they want to say they're going to do it because it makes them comfortable with the idea that they're going to go off and do something. But if they go and do it, there's a chance they could fail. So it's a lot easier just to stay in that concept of having the idea rather than being a doer. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, it's actually, I'm reading this book called Ego is the Enemy, and they actually mentioned something interesting about that. Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm enjoying it.
It's sitting right next to me. Actually, I haven't started yet.
You'll enjoy it. I think it will coincide really well with what you're getting into, and same for me. And in this thing, it says in this book, they talk about the psychological conundrum that happens with when you say you're going to do something, and this is like right in line with like Olympic athletes, for example. They'll kind of visualize like running the course or whatever it might be, or jumping the hurdles or doing whatever it is, and this is what makes them the best in the world at it. But what they do is they go through it mentally. And so oftentimes when people talk about stuff, it feels like they've already done it. The problem is talk is cheap and it's not really doing anything. Mm-hmm. When you actually go and make something, you have to talk about it, but you have to actually do it, you know, and that's a very difficult, very, 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 I think the thing is people are blinded by the fact that when they think they're talking and doing meetings, like how many people do you know that work at a place and they're like, fuck, I was in meetings all day. And they're like, well, what did you do? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, well, you just wasted your whole day, you know, like, why don't you sit down, shut that stuff off and go do something, you know, like if at the end of the day, you don't have something to like really prove for it, even if it's a little something small, part of a bigger thing, then like, what are you doing? It's so easy to be distracted by that stuff, you know, especially in this day and age, you know, like I say that like I'm an old person, but like it's more crazy than ever to kind of be distracted by like YouTube videos of cats, you know, or whatever, and think that you did something. Or, but yeah, I mean, I grew up around people that would talk a lot and didn't do much about it. And it's frustrating, you know, like, come on, you know, go do it. And I'm doing my best to kind of throw myself into that world of like risk and high stakes, because I'm like, hey, that whole time that we've known each other, you didn't. And can you see like it's possible? I'm hoping this inspires you to go chase your dream, you know?
Yeah.
So,
No,
yeah.
a perfect example is I've got a friend who I remember this time last year, it was December last year, and I was sitting with him at the beach, and he's like, oh yeah, like, you know, he started talking about his goals, about like what he wants to do in 2016, and I'm like, okay, so this is exactly what we're doing. December last year, as you were telling me about these goals that you wanted to do, and so I was kind of busting his balls a little bit about it, and then
Good. You're a good friend.
Yeah, well, I felt like you got to kind of put him in, you know, a little bit of discomfort occasionally. But that's the thing, is he started building this whole excuse. He's actually working Prologue, and he's saying, I'm too busy working there to actually have time to do this thing, so I need to take time off to go and do it. And so I sat down and said, well, fuck it, like, let's work through how you can do it, where you can only take a week off, but you'll put everything in place so it can be done while you're still working on all these other projects. And so he went off, you know, pretty much with a plan to, okay, cool, this is a clear idea of like what I need to do, and I can go off and do it. Problem is that suddenly it's so much easier because he's been given the roadmap to be like, fuck, now I'm actually faced with the fact that I'm not going to do it because now I have no excuse. And I remember just like a couple weeks ago, and I caught up with him again, and he's like, oh yeah, like I got to talk to you because I got plans for next year. And I'm like, I'm not having this conversation. He's like, well, no, like, I'm going to do exactly what we talked about last year, but I'm going to really do it this time. And I'm like, do I even want to like waste my time? Like, or are you actually going to, you know, do it? Because that's the thing, is it's okay to say,
You're
I'm
a
not
good
going
friend.
to. But well, that's just it. Like, you can be like, okay, that's great, buddy. Or you can be the dick who does kind of like say the truth, but it means that
No,
you've kind of
it's good.
ends up being truthful to yourself, because you're like, shit, you know, I'm pissed at Allan because he's kind of right about this, and this puts me in a situation like, am I doing this for comfort, or do I actually truly want to do it? And if so, what's the worst that can happen? Because if I can face that,
Yeah.
then I'll be okay.
Yes, absolutely. It's a beautiful reality, and he's lucky to have you in his life, and he will thank you once he gets past that
I
hurdle.
tell him every day. I'm just kidding.
You're lucky to have me. No, yeah, no, but it's true. And iron sharpens iron. It's one of my favorite. I don't know if
Like
it's a
that.
proverb, but it's a beautiful thing. I use it all the time. When regards to when I work with people, it's like, yeah, like I couldn't be this person that I am without you. You know, like you're making me stronger, and thank you for that. And I'm gonna do you a favor and do my best to help you as well. Yeah, and seeing it, you know, the roadmap is always very important, you know, and in regards to, say, like the production of making Lost Boy, people would go like, wow. I showed my friends the process of making this. I have a group of friends that I meet up with monthly. They're very close friends of mine.
That's
I love
awesome.
them dearly.
So it's like a mastermind group?
It's just my friends that we just hang out once a month, and we hang out and just like cook, and we talk about life, and we go on hikes, and we watch movies, and it's just really, it's just healthy. It's food for the soul kind of stuff, you know, because it's so easy to get lost in it. And I don't get to see my friends much at all, once a month, basically. That sucks, you know, so I'm constantly working and stuff. But I've showed them the whole time. I would show them pictures, and then I came back and I was like, look at this rough cut. And they've been watching it for the year, and they were like, holy shit, like this is insane, the amount of work that it takes to make something, you know, in this level. And so it's blown them away, just seeing the process of it, because it's so easy to go like, that sucked, you know, and it is easy, and stuff sucks when it sucks, you know, but it was eye-opening for them to see the process of that. I forgot what I was going to tie that into. There was a reason why I was going to say that. I lost my track. Iron sharpens iron. Yeah. And just having them see it, and then them kind of supporting it, but at the same time helping me see like, what about that? Or what about this? And then bringing those things up, and them seeing like how much work it does take to make these things happen. And the scale, I was talking, I think what I was bringing that up is because the roadmap, you know, when you make a film, there's so many layers and levels to it. And my friends, I think, could see the broad strokes. Every month I would show them something for 12 months, basically. They would see something every time. They're like, let me see the Lost Boy thing. Let me see the latest thing. And I'd show them a thing here and there. And they're like, wow, that's incredible. That's crazy. That was just a drawing, you know, now it's like this thing. But it's the same thing with life, you know, like if you want to go to a destination or a place or go somewhere or experience a certain thing, you have to do the same thing. You have to write it out, be about it, you know, talk about it, make it happen. It's okay to talk. I think if you just back it up with your actions, I think that's great, you know, and
exactly.
I mean, there's so many documents on that. It's really just triggering it and making yourself aware and being action oriented, because what happens is, like you said, like you can sit there I was getting tired of talking about Lost Boy. Honestly, I stopped talking about it. I just was like, I'm not going to talk about this until it's done. Now it's done. I can finally talk about it. This is a concept short, but it's like literally I'm showing like just a slice. We're showing just a little slice of a much bigger thing. So it's like I can talk about it, but I can't talk completely about it, And by the time I'm done with it, I'll probably not want to talk about it at all again, because I'll be like, it's dead to me now. I'm on to the other thing, So, which is that's the inevitable. Because if you're like me, and it sounds like we are the same, like you're constantly striving for that next challenge that gets you up and excited and curious about things, So, because I have a million other things in the works and all kinds of weird thing, the little films and short ideas and other films that I'm developing. So Lost Boy is just a facet of that love and infatuation with just this weird world that Anthony and I have created and joined together with Post Panic to bring out to you guys in this Lost Boy concept short. So yeah, much more things coming from those. So I have five minutes, if that's okay.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I know we're gonna wrap things up. So one thing I was gonna quickly say was I was just listening to a interview with Derek Sivers right before I jumped on the call with you, and there's one thing he said that really resonated for me, because it's exactly how I kind of see things, which is like a lot of people right now kind of want to juggle so much. They want to do 100 things at once, and they get frustrated and give up on everything because they can't do it all. And for me, at least, it's kind of been, especially in the last like 5 years, there's so much I want to do, but I've just been comfortable in the knowledge that I'm doing this, and then as soon as that's done, I've got 10 other things lined up, and it doesn't mean I'm going to stay that path. But right now, all the other things that I'm frustrated because I want to do, I'm going to do those. But for me to do that, I've got to complete the task, which right now is all the filming I've got to do for another 9 months before I can put that thing beside. But I've already got 100 other things lined up that I want to do. But until then, that's just going to be a concept that I can play with the idea until it's time to execute, And I think that having the comfort of knowing that you'll get there and being patient is a lot better than being frustrated that you've got too many things and you don't know which direction you want to go.
It's a hard balance.
3 quick questions, and then we'll wrap things up. So one thing, and this is a big one, so I'm hoping we can somehow do it in 5 minutes, but so were you strategic with the launch of publicly of the whole thing? Because I've got a few friends, I've got a lot of friends who are feature film directors, and like there's a lot of them that they've gone and initially gone through doing the short, transition to them doing features, and some of them have done really well, and other ones like didn't, and it usually came down to just the execution of getting to, okay, I'm going to launch this on Vimeo on Monday, and here's all the people I've got to notify ahead of time and start accepting everyone's like hat in the circle. So what was it like for you?
Yeah, for me personally, again, all this entire interview reflects nothing of anybody else but myself. So for me personally, it's all been a part of my own design of time. And so, months back, I would talk with my close friends at Wedge and Lever, who's a design firm. I've known Sam, who runs it, and Tommy and all those guys, Justin, John, Luke, all those guys. I talked to them quite a bit earlier about like, hey, I want to do this. Are you guys down to design this? Because I wanted to collaborate with them. So we kind of worked about like, let's have this countdown happen so we can get people on the news group and all that stuff. So the newsletter, and so have people kind of aware of this thing. And then so when it drops, we have like, thousands of people that we can send this out to. I think that's really important, having it all poised and ready. And it just goes on Vimeo. It's nothing like crazy. Vimeo is great, and it has like decent audience. It's its own little thing, So, and you got to time it right. We were supposed to have it done on Tuesday. We needed another like 24 hours because we just got completely obliterated trying to get the grade done with all that. Was the whole nother thing. So
Tuesday's the magic day. Today was my Tuesday, and I blew my, Steve Jobs is the one responsible for the Magic Tuesday launch.
Tuesdays are the best to launch. Usually you just look at Google Analytics and you look at like, posting. There's tons of information on that stuff online.
Apple has never launched a product not on a Tuesday.
Yeah, it's the Mondays, everybody's getting back to world. Tuesday's a good day. Wednesday is okay. Fridays are the worst too, and Thursdays are kind of shot too. So either some people don't even work on that day, and then weekends are horrible. So I send certain emails, personal emails, and it's not in a way that I hope it doesn't sound manipulative, and I guess it probably is, but it's not my intention.
It's strategic. It's strategic word.
Yeah, and I have a huge list of friends and people that I admire or I've talked to about this over the years, people I met at Comic-Con and stuff. So I have I had like about 150 people. I still haven't gone through everybody, but just artists that I admire, people I've had on podcasts, just like, just friends and stuff. And I have to go through that. And I was gonna actually had you on it, but I saw you saw it, so I wasn't going to send it to you twice. So, and then obviously you told me you saw it, so I was like, okay, I'm not going to send you a link, but I had like this long list. And so, yeah, it's just all strategic, placing it in perfect timing and making sure that like, hey, this is something I worked on. I'm proud of it. I've talked to people about it, and you should share it with them, but it spread naturally. It hit 100K views in like, I believe 36 hours, and it got the Vimeo staff pick, and it went on like all these different blogs, and then it became the internet's basically at that time. So, yeah. Strategic, awesome, though. It's really important. I think you have to be really cognizant. Again, you have to wear many hats. You have to be a business person. You have to be aware of IP law stuff. You have to be able to, wear all the different hats on production. You don't want to be going into making a film that involves VisFX and not knowing it. You're going to have the biggest problems. You're basically going to go into a world of hate and hurt. I mean, not hate, a world of hurt. So, yeah. Yeah,
that's great. That's really great, man. And I showed this to a few of the soups over at Digital Domain, and I just basically mentioned, I had to say that because there's like a few other DDs these days, so I'm like, Digital Domain. But yeah, so basically I was just like, hey, I'm gonna be speaking to Ash, like, what do you guys think, and any questions? And of course it was all technical stuff, but I mean, you were shooting on the Red, right? Was it just regular Epic? Yeah. Was it Dragon, or what did you go with?
I believe it was the Epic. Yeah, and we didn't realize it, but that time when we came back and reviewed the footage and we saw it, there was an error in the chip, and it was on the footage, so we had to do like a denoise. Oh, it was a nightmare. So we used this Red Epic. I think it's because it was like jostled around when it was being filmed. So, but I believe, Red Epic, and it was shot 4K at 120. So yeah, I believe that was set. I'm not sure if the Dragon was out. We had Zeist primes.
Okay, yeah. Awesome. The Dragon was out because I remember the last time I spoke to you, you're just about to go off and do this, and I was going to offer to lend you my Dragon, and
thank you.
You already sounded like you already had the right gear, so I'm like, all right, I guess you guys are good. Unless you want to shoot stereo.
Thank you so much.
Next time.
Yeah, no, we really want to shoot anamorphic because anamorphic's the best. Anamorphic at a 235 is just like, it's the best. Because it just opens up everything, and allows you to see more. It's cinematic. It just feels bigger, basically. It utilizes the screen perfectly, but as you know, anamorphic is a pain in the ass for VisFX, and it's very expensive. So our DOP really wanted to too, and we fought for it, but at the end, the budget couldn't allow it. So, and the difficulties and all that stuff, like, stretching and restretching and all that kind of stuff was just a nightmare. So
you were in Zeiss lenses. Were you mainly shooting on a 50mm, or like what was your prime for everything?
I believe Arnaud, I can't speak for him, but from what I remember, mostly we were in the range. We didn't go too super wide. I'm not a huge wide lens fan. I love 45 to 80 is my favorite range, but I also like the telephotos too. So I believe it was, anywhere from 80 to 50 to maybe 45-ish. I'm not sure though. I don't know the specifics because I didn't operate the camera and all that stuff. It was just, we had all the shots, and Arnaud, that's what he does. He's a pro at it. So, and Anthony too, he would throw the different kit on and boom, you go, so. Yeah, really, but I'm thinking that's what it was. So we'll have to ask him exactly the details. I'm not sure. I'm sure he probably remembers, but yeah, so long ago. So
cool, man. Well, I'll start wrapping things up. You mentioned before ego is the enemy. So I mean, Ryan Holiday is one of those guys again who's got pretty fucking amazing career considering I think he's younger than us. He's 29 or 30. So yeah, he's had a phenomenal career and especially worked with authors like Robert Greene and Tucker Max, obviously, which is such a contrast. But I mean, is there any other books that you'd recommend right now that you've read?
Oh yeah, there's so many good books. Let's see. Ego is the Enemy is the one I'm on right now, and I'm enjoying that so far. I just finished that. We talked about Robert Greene's Mastery, which is incredible. It's one of my top five favorite books in regards to that kind of stuff. I'm in need of a good fiction right now, so that's I usually split it up. I go some heavy like self-help books, and I'm looking at my Audible right now, and then some like, fictional stuff. So I just finishing up Stephen King's Black House. It's pretty good. Kind of gets all crazy. I'm actually the next fictional I'm going to read is No Country for Old Men, the actual Cormac McCarthy book. So I'm excited to read that because I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan. So
Yeah.
and that's one of my favorite films too. So I'm going to that'll probably then be the next film that I get really deep into after like I'm been dissecting 2001 for quite some time now for my next film. So
Cool.
Yeah,
good,
but
man.
that's hopefully that those are good ones. But I mean, there's the staple like Eat That Frog and all those things, and then how to manage your day to day with all those books. If you're interested in taking yourself seriously and your life seriously, those are good books to read. So
I've quoted Eat That Frog like probably 4 or 5 times this week alone, and I at least that many times this week. So
Awesome.
I mean, I should probably speak. What is it?
Brian Tracy should
Walk My
do
Walk.
it.
But
Yeah. Oh, you haven't read it yet?
no, that's the thing is like I know I have read it, but I'm just saying that
Awesome.
like I preach it so much, but I should really talk the talk and walk the walk instead of telling everyone else like go tackle the hardest shit in your day first. But
yes, that's why I said that when I'm doing all this talk and here, it's easy for me to say these things, and I'm skipping over a lot of hardship and pissed off times and anger and stuff. But those are just like little shadows of moments and glimpses, whereas the overall experience is quite good. But again, it's easy to say up on top of here being done with it, like and it's actually turned out to be a success. It's like it's so easy, blah blah blah. It's not. It's very difficult. It's very hard. You're gonna hate part of it, and it's gonna be very difficult, and everybody and everything's gonna test you. But it's good. You're supposed to have that. That's what you're doing it right when it's really frustrating, and you're filled with self-doubt, but you have an inkling of hope. That's when the best work comes out. I think that's when new work comes out. I think so.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good, man. I could ask you a billion more questions, but we better wrap it up. Let's talk more. Oh, great, man. That's fucking awesome. I'm about to go work out too. So
there you go. Get ready.
Dude, after 4 years, because my back, I didn't work out for 4 years, and I'm just getting back into it the past like 2 months, and it's been awesome. So Paris, let's catch up and let's talk more, and it's going to be great.
It's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for being you and being awesome, and I appreciate your time. And everybody here that's listened, you guys are awesome. I'm hoping that you get some sort of inspiration from my journey, and I'm super excited to see what you create and go and try something different, make something cool and unique in your own, So, and do it don't do it for anybody else but yourself. Just go and do it, So don't ask for permission. Just go freaking make it,
That's right.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Just fucking do it. Awesome,
Thanks,
man. It's
homie.
been great talking to you. Let's talk soon.
You too. Have a great workout, and I'll see you next time.
You too. See you,
Cheers.
brother. Okay, so that is it. Thank you for listening. And for the show notes, just go to www.allanmckay.com/70 and you'll be able to access the new and improved show notes, which are very in-depth, as well as all the information on how to check out Ash's work, Lost Boy, everything else. In addition to that, there'll be a link to sign up for all the mega training I'm putting out this month. So that will be about 15 or 20 hours of free training. And now is the time that you can still vote on this as well. So keep that in mind if you want to go check it out, allanmckay.com/70. Now, one last thing, usually I don't ask this, but I wanted to ask a favor. If you can share this around, I'd love to have a chance for other people to enjoy this. So if you think that it's something that others will benefit from, then simply share the link on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever else you want to share it on, Twitter. So that is it. Thanks again for listening. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon.